Hi, and welcome to another episode of Twice as Hard. I am Janelle Benjamin, founder and CEO of All Things Equitable, and I am here today with Sharon Boyd. She is an equity, justice, and equality advocate based in the Virginia area, and I'm really, really happy to have you with us. Hi, Sharon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's my pleasure to have you on. You're one of those people that I've been following and liking on LinkedIn for quite some time, and you're always super outspoken about issues of Blackness in the workplace. And I just thought she's definitely somebody that I have to have on for this particular topic, which is twice as hard, right? The ways in which we show up in the world, and that notion that Black women have that we need to work twice as hard and be twice as good, quite frankly. Right. I want to ask you, Sharon, how has that notion showed up for you in your life? Where did it first start?
Wow, it started 32 years ago, going into 33. I was an at-home mom for a while. And when I went back to work, my first job was a HR generalist. And my mentor, after 6 months, she moved me up to an HR manager. Then I became a director in less than 18 months and got into recruiting.
Okay.
And found my niche.
You love recruiting.
Yeah, I love helping people find careers, not just jobs. My candidates and the candidate experience is so very important to me. It's actually a pet peeve of mine. So I started that way, and it has been a passion of mine ever since. Even when it was affirmative action, I was a part of it then. So then a little over a decade ago, D&I came to play. And it did the same thing that affirmative action did, which was nothing.
Yeah, we know affirmative action has historically not benefited Black women in the workplace.
No, it was used to hire white women.
That's right. That is right.
And so you're not going to be very blunt about it.
No, I'm straight shooter. That's okay on this show. We want to talk the things. We want to go there and have that conversation. But I want to ask you then, so how did the idea that you had to work twice as hard kind of show up in that context for you?
I was always the only one, only Black person, or either the first. And I always had to prove myself. As you see, I have a very raspy voice. And it's been a curse for me in corporate America.
In what sense? Why did you feel like you had to prove yourself?
Because of my voice. And because I was a Black woman, I had to work harder to be promoted, to be, I wasn't even paid the same as someone. It was women that I was in higher positions and they made more money than I did.
How did you find that out? How did you find that out?
Well, I was in HR.
Oh, man. So you had access to the payroll.
Yeah. And I remember the day that I said no more. When my payroll person was out. And I had to do payroll. Mm-hmm. And when I saw how much less that I made than the white women that worked and did the same job, that's the job than me, made more than me. And I mean tens of thousands more than me.
Oh my God.
And that was enough for me.
Did you confront anybody to explain that inequity?
Yes, I did. And the excuses that were given, no real justification for well, you know, she has this or she has that, and well, I do too. So and I have more experience. So, you know, it didn't make sense. So in 2005, I left corporate America for a while because of discrimination, microaggressions, the code switching, the Black girl syndrome, just feeling not represented in corporate America. So I left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I went to nonprofit for a while.
So would you say it's because that notion that you had to work twice as hard just wasn't working for you? Or
It
what?
wasn't for me, because why do I have to work twice as hard?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have to go above and beyond? Why? When my counterparts, white women, they didn't have to do that, but I had to. And it just disturbed me. And I felt at the time that I just, either I stay and deal with it or I leave. So I left.
Hmm.
I've left several jobs due to that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's happening time and again. It's
Oh,
not.
it happens. Yeah, and it's still happening. It's
Mm.
still happening. The pay equity, you know, African Americans are still at the bottom of the totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
We still are.
Yes.
Even Hispanics now leveled off above us
Mm-hmm.
in corporate America. You know, companies, you know, want to, you know, that they're setting these North Star goals to hire certain number of underrepresented groups, which African American, Black, Hispanic American, Latina, and Latinx, well, they're getting hired more so than even African American and Blacks are. When you look at the numbers that corporations put out, um, they want to hire more Hispanics than they do African Americans because
And
they go by population.
right. And of course, we can only attribute that to racism and racist practices because, as we know, what Black women are not only twice as good, but we're twice as qualified, right?
Right.
We have more
Twice
education.
educated.
We have more education than any other group in, I would say, North America.
Correct.
So definitely we know that discrimination is to account for these experiences. So I want to talk about, I guess, and maybe demystify that notion, and you touched on it a little bit, that working twice as hard is going to help us in some way, or potentially hurt us, right? That
Why do we have to work twice as hard?
yet we shouldn't have to.
We shouldn't.
Shouldn't have to. But
You know, we
still,
shouldn't.
but still, I feel like, you know, from the conversations that I've had with women in different parts of the globe through this series, that there's this kind of common thread that we have, no matter where we come from, whether it was in the UK or parts of Africa or Canada where I am, or in the United States where you are, even in the Caribbean, we're hearing from Black women that this notion has been passed down to us through generations, that we do need to show up and work twice as hard and be better than, in order to get the opportunities.
We have to stay 2 steps ahead. That's what I was told when I was young.
Right.
You have to stay 2 steps ahead.
So let's
But you also have to keep your head down and not say anything.
Don't look them in the eyes.
Well, that didn't work for me.
Yeah. And why would you say that didn't work out for you? And you mentioned your voice.
Hmm?
You mentioned your voice. What is it about your voice that
Well, you see, I have a very raspy voice.
Mhm.
So whenever I speak, sometimes women, white women, I've heard that I was rude. I've heard that I was loud. I've heard that I was, bodacious. And I've never been, I'm not going to code switch. This is how I speak. It's either you take it or you leave it.
right?
I'm not going to change my voice to appease anyone. So it was just something that I went through for a very long time, where then I ended up in therapy because of it.
For those who don't know what code switching is, Sharon, tell them what code switching is. Give me your best code switched voice. What what would you do for those who don't know what it is?
What would I do? I'm
Yeah.
not code switching for anyone.
Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally did not mean to hurt your feelings. That's not my intention. I will try to speak differently.
No, you're absolutely
Not,
right. It's not working for you.
not working. It's never going to work for me because I'm going to speak I say what I say and I mean what I say.
Yeah.
And I just don't, I'm not going to code switch or not be my authentic self for anyone, not even for a job, for a client, or anything. If you want me for my skills and my expertise, then that's fine. But if you're expecting me to change how I speak, then that's very problematic, and I will not code switch for anyone.
I agree. Let's talk about, the problematic notions, the way that Black women are expected to show up in the world. I touched on this a little bit in my conversation with Elizabeth Leiba. But I want to hear from you and what your experience has been and how you, other than the code switching with your voice that you're unable to do, how else have you been expected to show up in the world? And how has that kind of helped you or hurt you over the course of your career?
I've been expected to be someone that I'm not.
Mm.
And it has hurt me in my career in the past. And it probably does now too. Um, I just won't break from who I am. I'll give you an example. Many, maybe 10 years ago, I'm not going to go too far back. It was my hair. And I went natural many years ago before people started really, dealing with the hair thing. And I'll never forget. My mentor told me on the phone, she said, Sharon, when I came by her house, she said, you're not wearing your hair like that to work. And I said, yes, I am. And she said that they're not going to accept that. And when I went to work the next day, my manager pulled me in the office and said, is something wrong? And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, did you do your hair this morning?
Wow.
I sat in the chair and I said, excuse me? I said, yeah, I did my hair. What's wrong with my hair? Well, that's not professional. That situation didn't turn out well, and I'm just going to leave it at
that. I could just imagine.
It did not.
I could just imagine. It probably ended with some. Was she white? Maybe it ended with some white tears.
It was some white tears, and I didn't apologize for those white tears either, because I don't coddle anyone.
I don't blame you, Sharon. I think I'm very much like you, just a straight shooter. I don't code switch. I don't think I have it in me, and I just don't know how to do it. And it has not been well received. I think that those quote unquote model minorities that are able to that role, like you mentioned, they get the favor in the workplaces and they're looked at even above us. And so what would you say, or how would you recommend that corporate leaders be more inclusive, right? Part of what you do as an equity and justice and equality advocate is to help make these workplaces better. So how would you, I guess, resolve that, and what recommendations could you give to the audience?
Well, first of all, our hair is not our skill set. Our hair is not whether we can do a job or not. Our hair is a part of who we are, part of our culture. So we should be able to wear our hair any way we choose to wear our hair.
Right.
Whether it's in a bush, whether it's straight, whether it's in a nice wrap, that should not determine whether an individual gets a job or not, or whether an individual is promoted or not. or whether an individual can work there, not just bottom line. I think that leadership need to make it a zero tolerance workforce of touching our hair or speaking on our hair, being reprimanded about our hair, anything. It should be a zero tolerance in every corporation. It should be just like it is discrimination and sexual harassment. It needs to be a zero tolerance policy within corporations. If someone touches someone's hair or comment on their hair or anything like that, there should be reprimanded for it. I really believe that. I think that corporate America needs to change a lot of their policies as it pertains to underrepresented groups.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I feel like, you know, a lot of the corporate policies that they don't go far enough to address the discrimination or the barriers or the experiences that we have in the workplace. And it's part of what I do when I'm working with corporations is to, you know, review their policies and their practices to see, you know, are the policies enforceable? Are they in use? Are they in operation? You know, are they dust collectors? And how do we bring those policies to life within the organization so that people, they know that they exist and they know how to use them and apply them to their lives? And there's consequences, right? There's accountability mechanisms in those policies to deal with rule breakers, right? People who.
But the fact is, they don't follow through on those things.
Well,
it's very problematic.
Well, right, because you've got the Crown Act in the United States, right, which is it's legislated that Black women's hair should not be discussed or talked about in the workplace. It's not so here in Canada. So you're finding organizations are putting it in individual policies where they have anti-Black racism policies, but where they don't.
Following through them. Are they really following through?
Yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's the follow through. It's the accountability piece that I'm seeing that is lacking. And a lot of times when Black women run to HR, we go and we tell of our experiences. We're told it's not so bad. Are you sure? She didn't mean it, or he didn't mean it.
They don't do anything about it.
And I think those are the things that need to change. It's you know, the application of the policies at the same time.
Well, I think that every company and HR, well, first of all, DEI needs to be removed from under HR. It needs to be changed. But I feel that there should be advocates within every organization that when you file complaints like that advocate is there for that employee. Because you remember, HR works for the company. So they're going to do everything in their power to protect the company, not you.
Right.
So I don't have a lot of stock in HR. I wouldn't complain to HR because I don't trust the process with HR because it does not, especially it doesn't work for us.
Talk to me a little bit more about that, Sharon. I feel like this collective experience of Black womanhood in corporations globally, and that inability to go to the very places that we're told to go to address our complaints, is really a huge part of the problem. But even before that, it's the bad actors, right? And the things that are acted upon us in these environments that absolutely needs to stop so that we don't need to seek redress for whatever the issues are that we're experiencing because of our race, our ethnicity, our skin color, or what have you. So what would you say, I guess, has been your experience, and how has working twice as hard over your career, because I'm sure you're twice as qualified, twice as good, just like most Black women that I know, we're just excellent. How has Black girl magic, it's in our DNA, how has your Black girl magic allowed you to survive, thrive, or even persevere these environments or even move beyond or past them?
I just don't take crap. I
Mm,
don't take crap. I just, you know, I will go ahead and make I'm going to follow the policies and procedures.
mhm.
But if it doesn't work, that's what outside entities are for.
Right.
And I will file a complaint against you. I don't care. I will file the complaint because if corporations don't start actioning and holding people accountable, it's not just leadership, it's down below leadership as well, because that's where a lot of the problem lies. It's just in management and co-workers. And leadership doesn't even know about it. Or if they do, they just brush it under the rug. Or we'll just, give them an NDA to sign, give them a few dollars, they can leave. But that doesn't solve the problem.
No, it doesn't.
So until corporations internally make the changes that needs to be made so that it is truly an equitable and inclusive and justice environment, we're not going to get the changes that we're looking for. Because first they got to acknowledge the truth.
Yeah.
If people don't want to acknowledge the truth that systemic racism is alive and well today.
Mhm. Those NDAs are so problematic. For those who don't know and that are listening, NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement. They're often signed by employees who are terminated without cause, AKA shown the door. And because of whatever egregious violations have taken place within the organization, they don't want to account for. They, pay you off, pay for your silence, right? You take a settlement, and a lot of times with respect to Black women, it's women who are either sole supporters, single mothers, providing for their household, breadwinners, what have you. And when you strip them of their income, they're forced to sign these agreements in order to literally survive. And so that's part of the systemic problem, I would say.
It's a major part of it, because all you did was you didn't fix the problem.
Right.
So then why that person left,
Mm-hmm.
the next person that comes in behind them will go through the same thing if they look like them.
Oh, I've had my share of NDAs. In my cases, it's a Karen who's been Karening, runs to HR, and for whatever reason, I'm no longer the bright shining star that I was when I came in the door, right? It's that pet to threat notion, right? That you're the office pet, you come in and you're the shining star, they're so happy to have you. You work twice as hard to get there, and you're their shining example of, that one Black woman who made it, right? And you're supposed
Come
to
in and shut everything down. You come in and do it better than everyone else.
right.
But you say one word or you report something that you report somebody for a microaggression or discrimination or labeling or targeting, then you become the bad guy.
Oh yeah, we're put back in our place really fast. We're sidelined, we're marginalized, we're told, which projects not to do anymore. It happened to me, came back from maternity leave. All my projects were not reassigned back to me. They stayed with the other manager, and of course a plan was put in place. 6 months later, I'm out the door. And so yeah, it is a problem where
it's happening more often than you know.
It's happening so much in organizations of all types and sizes, the for-profit, not-for-profit sector, governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations. It is rampant, and it's happening.
Not fixing the problem.
It's happening to not just Black women, it's happening to people of color the world over, where we're experiencing.
No, I don't use the term people of color.
Well, what do you call them? BIPOC, whatever.
Call them that. We'll call them who they are, whether they're Asian,
They're
whether they're
Asian or Latino.
Latina.
Right.
I don't, because you can't, when you do that, you're
Mhm.
looping everybody's experience
And
together.
we're not the same.
That's why we as Black people don't get anywhere. And
Mhm.
we stay at the bottom of the totem pole.
It's true. We're
Because,
all racialized and we all have a unique experience and that needs to absolutely be acknowledged.
right, but the thing about it is, I don't sugarcoat anything. So I'm just going to be very frank.
Mhm.
Everybody deserves equality, but I'm really concerned about my people,
Mhm.
my people,
Mhm.
because everyone, jumps on the bellwether of oppression,
Right.
and everyone else gets reparations or get uh, 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 taken care of, but Black people.
Mhm. Well, this is the root. I mean, anti-Black racism, the root of uh, the experiences of racialized people is anti-Black racism, right? We have to address issues of Blackness. And when we do that in corporations, other ethnic groups or ethnic minorities also benefit, right? You learn,
Right, but they benefit before us
they
because
always benefit before us. That's
right,
that's
so
part,
that's
that's part
why,
of white supremacy.
right, but that's why we have to ensure.
Mhm.
That's why we should not loop people of color together, because their experience is not the same as ours.
No, there.
Not in this country or around the world. Our experience, the only other group
Mhm.
was the Jewish community.
Mhm.
Our experience, we're still in enslavement.
Right.
We're still dealing with systemic racism.
Mhm.
These groups and these organizations and companies benefited and continue to benefit off the backs of our ancestors and us. I
Absolutely.
mean, our culture, everything. We have to first acknowledge the truth,
Mhm.
and we have to deal with each group's issues separately and differently, because they are different. There's
Absolutely.
no experience like the Black experience.
Absolutely. There's no other group that has had the legacy and the impact of enslavement than Black people, right?
Correct.
And the fallout of that is part of that is this notion, right? I talked about this with Elizabeth Liba, this notion of like the house Negro and the field Negro, and the fact that no matter where you were, you had to work hard and you had to work harder than, and you wanted to get masses favor. So you wanted to show out and show how hard you were working so that you didn't get flogged. And that notion has been passed down to us no matter where we are in the world as a collective, right? It's part of our collective experience. My mother passed it down to me to say, you need to be twice as hard, be twice as good in order to get into that school, in order to be that professional, in order to get that job. But it doesn't serve us. It hasn't served me because
It didn't serve me either.
I've done all those things. I've gone to the Ivy League schools. I've jumped through the hoops, and I've, quote unquote, had the success that you would expect, a white peer or a peer of another race or ethnicity to have it at my age and stage.
Mm.
But still, like you said, there's the pay gap, there's the power gap, right? Like I'm not in the same roles. I can look at my white peers who are at my age and stage, and what are their titles, what are their salaries. There's always this disparity that is
Right.
impacting the next generation. And
Exactly.
so for me now, it's about leaving a legacy for my own children and repairing some of those. You talk about reparations a little while ago. I have to help my own self and repair some of the systemic inequities, because society isn't going to do it. They're not going to fix. They're not going to fix it, right? They're people who are benefiting from the system are not going to be the ones to fix the system.
Why fix it when their pockets align?
That's
Why fix it when they live in generational wealth for their families? That's why I'm in such big support of not supporting these companies, not buying from these companies. Why buy from them? You're leaving generational wealth for their families, and they're not funding one Black business. They're not coming into our communities. They're buying up the Black community and kicking Black people out of the Black community. So, I just have a different perspective than a lot of other people do. And I'm raw with it. I really just don't care. Because I want to see once and for all Black people treated equally.
Hmm. Yeah.
Bottom line. And that's just not happening.
No. And that's why we talked about creating our own table when we can't get a seat at the table. That's exactly what I've done, and so many other people are doing in order to quote unquote make it.
Oh, I tell people from day one when you start playing, Black folks playing your exit strategy day one. Day one. Because, and everybody's not going to be an entrepreneur
Right.
and we not be.
Right.
But we have to educate our people. We do. Not anyone else. We do.
Yeah. Mm,
On our history,
right.
on what we need to do to bridge that generational wealth for. We were more financially secure than them, and that's why they did the things that they did to the Black Wall Streets, because it just wasn't a Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Right.
We had a prominent Black communities in all 50 states. They were doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Just then, the Second Amendment didn't apply to us.
I love talking to you, Sharon. You're raising so many things that we could go on and on and on and about for forever. The ability for us to raise our heads despite the inapplicability of the law, just speaks to our Black excellence. It speaks to the ways in which we persevere and thrive and survive. The melanin makes us just shine regardless of our conditions or our circumstances or what our oppressors try to do to us.
And they still tried to do us, but and it's someone that I love, and I think John Graham. I don't even use the word supremacy anymore. White insecurities.
Mm.
I love John Graham. I love his book. I promote it everywhere I go. Plantation Theory. Everyone should read it, whether you're in corporate America or not. It will at least give you an opportunity to change your narrative, your mindset, the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's too many people, and we saw it in the election. I didn't want to vote for either one of them, but heck, I voted for somebody. Our people are still, no matter what we do, we need to stop listening to these politicians, because all they used us for was to get him in the White House.
Right.
Look what happened. Nothing. Nothing.
Sharon, I want to end by asking you, I guess, what are some of the ways that you currently work twice as hard? What are you working on? What projects do you have on the go, and how can people reach you?
Well, I am always looking to help our people and underrepresented people get in corporate America if that's their choice, or getting into entrepreneurship. I'm a big believer of entrepreneurship. I believe your full-time job can be your full-time business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always working on things like that. I'm always working in my community, mentoring young girls and young men and adults, doing different projects in our communities to help rebuild and build our communities and educate our people, not just on our history, but financial literacy, education, because everyone is meant to go to college. But I think that we need to get back into the trade schools and home ec and all of those things. And we have so many other Black entrepreneurs that can educate a lot of our young people into different fields and show them different fields that they can go with. They don't have to always go to corporate America.
Right.
they can start their own businesses. So I'm really big on entrepreneurship. Everyone can reach me on LinkedIn,
Okay.
or they can send me an email to Sharon P. Boyd at outlook.com. Eccentric Solutions Network is my family's business.
Okay.
They can website coming.
Coming soon. I love it.
Coming.
Thank you.
Because I'm just, I think when I took the time off, I want to do something different. And it's going to be, it may not be well received in the beginning, but I think that it will be something that could truly help corporations in changing how they do DEI. Because diversity does not equal equity.
No, it doesn't.
Inclusion doesn't equal justice.
Mm-mm.
Equality normally just means that we're being tolerated, and I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be respected.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Sharon, for your contributions to this great series. It's going to be another great episode. For those of you who enjoyed watching, please don't forget to click like, share, and subscribe below. I would love to hear from you in the comments about your thoughts on the episode. And we'll see you next time for another edition. Thank you again. And you can reach me at allthingsequitable.ca. Thanks again for coming on the show, Sharon.
Thank you for having me. I truly enjoyed talking with you.
I enjoyed talking to you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.